Bronx man accused of committing several violent attacks, now behind bars.
So many of you have sent me this particular story, which is the story of Timothy Bowler, a violent repeat offender who is 31 years old with a criminal history that dates back to at least 2016, although I dispute that. I think it goes back a little bit further, which we will get into a little later, and how this man was released onto the streets over and over again, and how there's all these different various stories about how he sliced the fingers off of an individual, he somehow got probation after killing someone, and he has a lengthy criminal history of violent arrests, but of course the system has bent over backwards in order to help him. So what we're going to do today is go through his available criminal history, and the reason why I'm saying his available criminal history is that the sons of you-know-what here in the state and the city of New York offered this man not only deals where he could skate on the consequences of his crimes time and time again, but they actually sealed the court cases for 20 of his arrests, and considering the arrests that we have available are absolutely disgusting and should have got him off the streets, again, almost 10 years ago, I think this is insane. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, I just want to say that the local news presenter for this segment is wearing leather pants, and I think she pulls it off, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. I also want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Yeah, Nadia, tonight we are learning 31-year-old Bronxite Timothy Bowler was arrested in connection to an incident in Queens. But Bowler's name may sound familiar, and that's because we've been covering his run-in with authorities since 2016. At the time, the then 22-year-old was charged with attempted murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon. The incident taking place at a deli in Gun Hill Road, Bowler throwing a drink container at a worker and then striking another worker with a pistol before taking off. Fast forward to the top of this year in January, when police say Bowler cut off 4 fingers of a man using a machete. And in this video, you see 2 men arguing over barking dogs. One of them takes out a machete and swings it at the dog, and when the owner stepped in to protect his pet, 4 of his fingers were severed. Bowler's violent spree did not stop there.
So we end up getting a little bit of a taste of Bowler's criminal history from this local news report, and I want you guys to really pay attention to what they said, because I'm going to tell you what the local news affiliate did not tell you about that 2016 incident, but on its own, it's already incredibly bad. Apparently, there was a dispute over a drink. Now, I know the full story behind this, make no mistake about it, and Bowler decided to respond to that dispute by throwing a drink at a deli worker. Then he returned to that dispute with a firearm, pistol whipped an individual, and then he was able to skate on that somehow, even though that case, by the way, is significantly worse than they're laying out. And then you fast forward to another case that happened recently this January, where he was angry at barking dogs on the streets of Manhattan, and of course, he pulled out a machete.
This adorable pitty named Chanel is sweet and friendly, but she's missing her owner tonight. Rakeem Young is in the hospital after having 3 fingers surgically reattached.
Trying to protect my dog, man, from these people out here that have no control, no self-control.
Police released this video, the man in the colorful outfit wielding a machete as Chanel goes to say hi to another dog.
And he just swings the machete, and that's when I throw my hand up to grab it, and it sliced off my fingers.
You threw your hand up to try to grab it away from him and to protect your dog.
Yes, and it took my fingers off.
He says Chanel wasn't barking or menacing. He's had her since she was a puppy, and she's never aggressive, just a little curious. And why in the world did this guy have a machete?
It just goes to show me that people come outside looking for problems.
Now, to be fair, based on the surveillance video, Bowler is wearing a hat and we can't clearly see his face, so it could be an instance where the police are thinking it's Bowler, but they're actually looking for Jenk's nephew, because we all know that he doesn't like dogs that get out of line. But all joking aside, a man lost 4 of his fingers in a machete attack, and for whatever reason, we are not done with this individual. But the thing is, it's actually significantly worse than that, because Bowler has killed somebody and he has many, many attempted murders, including this machete attack, which he's being charged for, but has not been convicted for, in his criminal history, that he was given a free pass on. Again, people thought this man, innocent Baba Angel Aladdin, somebody who has a history of attacking people over the pettiest of reasons with weapons.
He is facing charges for another attack after a motorcycle crash with a 52-year-old woman in Queens that turned deadly back in March. According to police, Bowler left the scene.
So yeah, they end up breaking down the way that he killed that individual, which was getting into an accident. By the way, the 52-year-old woman who died in that particular case was actually a cancer survivor. And of course, he fled the scene of the crime, didn't call for help, didn't care about her. Her life was meaningless to him. And in addition of that, he also didn't even have a driver's license, because who can expect Bowler to follow the rules when the rules are never enforced against him? But the thing is, that local news very superficial listing of his criminal offenses doesn't even scrape the iceberg. Now, of course, we don't know about 20 of his arrests because they were sealed, because this guy has been cut break after break after break. He's actually been prosecuted a lot under the Bronx District Attorney, but guess what? The Bronx District Attorney actually has a worse record than Alvin Bragg in bringing charges to fruition. She drops more cases than him, downgrades more charges than him, but again, the New York Post article is incredibly illuminating, so we're gonna go to that. Timothy Bowler has been in and out of jail since he was a teenager, with a lengthy rap sheet that includes the death of a cancer survivor in Queens while on release from state prison, and a rape case in the Bronx just 6 months after he got out, Post records show. So it's important for you guys to understand that the phrase "when on release" means that he was on either probation or, in this particular case, on parole for that particular crime. And then just 6 months after he was released, guess what? He assaulted a woman. And this was a horrific assault that we will get into a little bit later. But needless to say, obviously this guy with his criminal history should not be getting an early release. But when he reoffends back on the streets, you need to violate his probation. You need to violate his parole. But the thing is, we have a law called less is more. Again, one of the woke criminal justice reforms that was instituted during the Black Lives Matter fervor, and that makes it extraordinarily difficult to violate somebody's probation or parole. And had that been done, guess what? Probably somebody would still be alive or have fingers that doesn't at this moment in time. His criminal record dates back to when he was a troublesome 16-year-old from the Bronx, and most recently includes claims that he sliced off an MTA worker's fingers with a machete over a dog dispute. Quote, "There is no longer any mechanism in law to keep people like this in prison," one law enforcement source said last week. Quote, "With all this bail reform, we're releasing violent people with zero supervision or any rehabilitation, just giving them another chance to do it all over again." Now, if you're confused about the timeline, let me give you some clarification. His latest case came while he was already locked up on Rikers Island on that machete attack, when he was charged on October 9th with hitting and killing pedestrian Leelawati Nareen, a cancer survivor who was out for a walk in Queens on March 22nd, 2024, when she was struck and killed. Doreen's death came less than 2 years after Bowler was first paroled from state prison. So this particular case has a huge element of tragedy. The woman that he hit and killed was a pedestrian. He slammed into her with his motorcycle. By the way, didn't have a license to drive that motorcycle. And then he abandoned the scene of the accident rather than calling for help. And that ultimately ended up costing that woman her life. But again, I promised you the previous criminal history, more context on that bodega incident, and here's where you're gonna get it. The case that sent him upstate was a chilling November 10th, 2016 incident at a Bronx bodega, during which he got into a dispute with the store clerk who refused to give him beer on credit, according to court records. According to the criminal complaint, Bowler threw a bottle of iced tea, the Arizona iced tea, at the victim and then struck him in the head before storming out. But he returned, armed with a handgun, pointed it at the clerk and yelled, "How do you feel now? I'm the man. Who's the man?" Bowler pulled the trigger, but the gun misfired and the bullet fell to the ground, the complaint said. He then pistol whipped him, which, by the way, I do have the footage of this incident. It is linked in the description. And even though he was originally charged with attempted murder, again, not told to you by the local news segment, he was able to plead down to an assault with a weapons possession, and he got 6 years in prison, according to those records. So this case right here is the perfect example of how you have to act quickly when somebody commits a crime, when they introduce a weapon to the crime, to remove somebody from the streets, because a man would have his fingers, a woman would be alive had they held strong on the attempted murder charges, which again, they had on video and they had multiple witness testimonies. But in addition to that, that case was so egregious because he wanted something on credit, aka for free. He was trying to steal the beer but not get the cops called on him. He wasn't granted that, so he assaulted the clerk during that particular encounter by throwing an iced tea can at his head, then by hitting him physically. But then after leaving, he was so angry, had so low impulse control, he retrieved a firearm, came back, and wanted to murder this clerk, again, over a beer credit that he did not receive. He pointed the gun at his head and fired it, and because of some issue with the firearm, a minor miracle, the bullet just fell out of the gun rather than firing, and then he pistol whipped that particular person. Again, the video of that is linked in the description of this video, but rather than pursue the appropriate charges, they ended up getting a 6-year sentence, and he was released, of course, after only serving 4 years of that 6-year sentence. However, to be fair, he was put out on supervised release, where he continued to reoffend, but this was also the era of less is more, so he was never somebody who had his parole violated during that period of time. He was free more than a year and a half when he violated the conditions of his release and was shipped back upstate on June 25th, 2024, staying locked up for just a week before he was released again. State correction officials said Bowler's return to prison was for a violation of his release, not a new conviction, so he had to be cut loose at the end of his conditional release date. What wasn't known then was that while he was on that conditional release, Bowler allegedly was involved in the Queens hit and run that left Noreen mortally injured, a case again where he fled the scene of the accident. Regardless, it would only take just a few months before he was wreaking havoc again. Bowler was accused of an assault in an alleged domestic violence incident in July of 2024, but he dodged jail when the charges were thrown out, according to law enforcement. He was picked up again in October for a slew of charges in an apartment near Crotona Park in the Bronx. Bronx prosecutors won't divulge the details of the incident because the case is sealed by law, but law enforcement sources said that Bowler allegedly held a woman against her will, threatened to beat the you-know-what out of her, and raped her while she was in the shower. It is unclear why this arrest did not send Bowler back to prison, because again, they decided to seal the case. So this woman right here that's pictured on your screen is not the victim of this particular crime. She's actually somebody who aided and abetted this criminal the whole way. Her name is Darcel Clark. She is the district attorney for Bronx County, the person who has been in that office since, of course, 2016. So she's been giving this man free passes for almost a decade, and unsurprisingly, because New York voters are absolute idiots, Darcel Clark recently won her 3rd term as the district attorney, but I want you to know that her office, the woman right here pictured, is the one that decided to not pursue a false imprisonment and a sexual assault case that could have put this man behind bars before he cut off somebody's fingers and before he got into that hit and run. But yeah, he eventually does get arrested. Obviously, the cutting off of somebody's fingers, the attempted murder charge, is a little bit too much even for the Bronx prosecutor to ignore, at least in the moment. She probably would have figured out a way to release this individual, but that's when the Queens district attorney actually figured out that this man was the one who hit somebody who had just finished chemotherapy, was actually declared cancer-free, out for a walk, and killed her. So yeah, hopefully the Queens prosecutor actually holds this guy to account, but this is New York City. This is New York State. You have woke prosecutors, horrible laws, and all these things garbled together in order to cost people significantly. Again, had they pursued that attempted murder charge to the fullest extent of the law, rather than actually downgrading it for a soft on crime plea deal, again, New York, there's mandatory minimums for weapons in possession of a crime. He barely got more lower than that mandatory minimum, this guy would have never committed an additional rape, held somebody hostage, assaulted multiple other people, domestic violence charges. He would never have cut somebody's fingers off, and he never would have killed that woman. All of those things happen as a result of one prosecutor refusing to do her job for nearly a decade, pretending that this man, Timothy Bowler, is an innocent Baba Angel Aladdin, and then making matters worse by not only not doing her job and not prosecuting him, but sealing nearly half of his arrests. So it's disgusting, it's horrible, it's terrible, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness in New York's criminal justice system. Till next time.